This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. Absolutely huge fight week here, Kelly Avanesian. But first, we've got a special shout out for someone.
We just want to say well done to Kugan Cassius, don't we? And his good lady. Congratulations on the birth of your daughter. I did speak to him last night. He went to me, it's easy at the moment, mate, isn't it? He went, is it? Seriously, is it? I said, mate, wait till they're crawling around. This is the easiest time. Sleeping all day. Oh, yeah. So I think he's under it a little bit at the moment, so... Good luck, mate. See you back soon.
Yeah, massive congratulations to him. Before we talk about this week, I want to just go back to last weekend. Firstly, how is Josh Warrington health-wise?
Health-wise, fine. He's wounded. I think is a good way to describe it, and so you should be. He's got to hurt. That's. If it didn't hurt right now emotionally for him, then he should pack it in. And he's really wounded emotionally. Just want to have a shout out to AJ actually, because they had a conversation last night. I spoke to Josh, and he sort of said, I could do with talking to AJ really. He's been there, he's experienced that kind of defeat. And I spoke to AJ. He said, yeah, I'd love to speak to him. And they had a FaceTime last night, and Josh spoke to me after, and he was buzzing. Can't wait for the rematch. I'm going to come back stronger. And I think that's such a great thing about the boxing community, that people can do that. And I think AJ probably doesn't realise he's almost like a seasoned pro now. He's experienced so many different scenarios all over the world, and I don't think he understands the positivity he can have to other fighters. He's almost like someone that you can look for advice and sort of career experience. And I think sometimes he probably feels like he's still at the early stage of his career. So shout out to AJ for doing that, and it was brilliant. So. I spoke to Josh yesterday on the phone, Josh Warrington, and he, he's getting his head around what happened. I think it's the greatest shock. Every morning you wake up like it's a bad dream. I had that on Sunday. I woke up on Sunday thinking, fuck me, did that actually happen last night? But you have to just realise what happened, understand why it happened, and when you talk to the team, I don't think you can pinpoint anything that you can say, oh, that's why. Was it the 16 months out of the ring? Was it no fans? Was it the prep weren't quite good enough? Was it we overlooked him? Was it Lara was just, really good and dangerous?
Wrong game plan?
Yeah, tactics. It could be all of them mixed together. But ultimately, it's done. So you've got to recover. You've got to come back stronger. And we will be making a rematch. And we've exercised our options with Maurizio Lara. And, we'll build towards... The good news for Josh is there's no fracture to his jaw, which they thought there might have been at the start. He's got some shoulder damage, some elbow damage, but nothing major. So really, I just said to him, you need a few weeks now to let your body recover. It was a brutal fight. And I said to him yesterday, mate, you're a fucking brave kid. Jesus Christ. I mean, I've not seen anything like that for a long time. And, he showed immense bravery. And I said to him, he said, I can't believe the support I've had from people that basically hated me before. I said, it's funny in defeat. Brits are a bit like that. When you show so much heart, when you lose, you almost become more popular. So he's gone from like a hero in Leeds to more popular around the country because people are actually, how can you not love Josh Warrington when you watch that fight? Because anyone that shows bottle and heart and courage like that, you have to be a fan of. So now he's got to rebuild, he's got to come again, and he wants to do the rematch. He wants to revenge the defeat, and it's going to be a massive fight.
What do you think of Kid Galahad's post?
I thought it was good. I mean, Shakur Stevenson was another one, I think that boxing, look, everybody, as we saw last night, it's a very heated environment, isn't it? Everyone's very passionate. Everyone, there are egos floating around, but no one really likes to see a fighter lose, especially like that. And especially when they show so much heart and courage, you understand? So you can't criticise Josh Warrington. Sometimes fighters take a knee or they the famous word quit, but they make a sensible decision not to carry on in the fight. This guy, he just fucking wouldn't give up. So I think everybody, whether Kid Galahad was pleased or not pleased, to come out and say something negative would have been a career disaster move. So, and I don't even believe he was pleased because, however Kid Galahad feels about Josh Warrington, he could have only watched that fight and gone, fuck, you gave it everything. Forget what happened in the past, This is a dangerous sport, and you have to respect all fighters, and fighters respect fighters. Things are said in the heat of the moment, But ultimately, and Shakur Stevenson come out of a really classy post, just saying like he's a warrior, man. He'll be back. I think he's going to get his belt back and all this. So brilliant. Great to see the response. Ultimately, now it's down to Josh. And I said to him yesterday, the best way to deal with this now is to look upon it as excitement. It's a new chapter. It's a new challenge. Because if you just sit there and, sulk about what happened and think about the past, it's not going to get you anywhere. Now you have to look at it and say, wow, this is the comeback. I've never had to do this before. He's never had to get off the canvas. He's never had to suffer defeat. He's never had to come back for adversity and win a rematch. Now this is the new challenge. This is another chapter in the life story of Josh Warrington. And that was the same with AJ. There's so much similarities between those two defeats. I mean, someone said that to me in the media, and I said, look, Ruiz is a world-class fighter. Lara is not, or might. It certainly hadn't proved. Yeah, I guess you have to say he is now. But so it was a bigger shock than the Ruiz fight, but still, it was still one where, you got beaten, you got put down multiple times, and he come back. And I see the same similarities, with AJ during the week after the fight and Josh Warrington. They put on a brave face, but I know how much he's hurting, but that's a good sign. I said to Josh Warrington yesterday, if you were now thinking, do you know what, sod this game, I'm not even that bothered that I lost, quit. Give up the sport of boxing, because it's dangerous enough as it is. But if you're hurting, if you're crying on your own at night in bed, good sign. And he'll be back.
That being said, though, the fourth round, the ending as well, absolutely brutal. How much do you think that will take out of Josh Warrington?
I think, whenever you get stopped, you'd think it would take something out of a fighter. I actually watched the fight back. On the night, being honest, I felt like the fight should have been stopped when he got up in the fourth round. I thought his legs weren't stable. It's a very difficult decision for Howard Foster at that point. But you have to ask the question, if that was Lara, would he have been stopped? And the answer is yes. So I think there is... But when I watched it back on TV, Howard Foster did say to him, Josh, walk forward, are you okay? And he looked at Howard Foster and he said, I'm okay. Right? His legs weren't there, but his mind was. And so I was a bit like that when I watched it back. Of course, there's the, should the corner have stopped the fight? You have to understand, his dad's in the corner. He knows him better than anyone. And Josh said to me yesterday, I was, don't forget he perforated his eardrum as well. His balance had gone, he'd been hurt in the fight. He said, I was okay. He said, but I just couldn't get my legs back. And that was the same with AJ, really, against Andy Ruiz. It's concussion. Let's not beat around the bush. So I think it's easy to look back, isn't it, and say, should have done this. But in the situation, when your career's on the line, when your unbeaten record's on the line, even when he went down, apparently he said to the ref, I'm getting up. Josh got in the ninth round, he went down, he said, I'm getting up. And he got up, and of course, had to be stopped. But listen, Josh would have gone all night. He's got fucking balls the size of melons. But in answer to your question, I don't think Josh has been in war after war after war. The Frampton fight was a really good fight. It wasn't necessarily a brutal war. And if you look at his other fights as well, hasn't, never been down, never really been hurt in a fight. So you never want to go through fights like that, but I believe he'll be back stronger.
Just a couple of last things on this one. When does that rematch have to happen by, and are you going to sign Maurizio Lara? Yeah,
we have Lara signed on a 2-fight deal moving forward. Listen, he's, sometimes my only desire now is to see Josh Warrington beat him in the rematch. But of course, with our global hat on, Maurizio Lara could end up being a star, and I'm just being honest, But I want Josh Warrington to beat him, and I see a lot of this rematch stuff is something that goes round. When people say, "Oh, he's got options on Lara, he's got a rematch." Oh, once again, look, let me just make something clear to you. When you've got a massive A side in a fight, right, or you have a champion, and I know Josh Warrington wasn't defending a belt, it's absolute standard practice to have options or a rematch on a guy that you have literally given this opportunity to from a list. Same with Andy Ruiz, same with Whyte Povetkin, because Dillian was defending his interim world title fight and his mandatory position. people say Kelly Avanesian, is there a rematch clause? No, there isn't a rematch clause. In fact, David Avanesian should have a rematch clause. He's champion. Marco Charlton, is there a rematch clause? No. But when you have a massive A-side in a fight, this is standard practice. And so that's something that we'll be looking to, we have exercised with Maurizio Lara and his team, and it will be set for the end of the summer. And we believe fans will be back. And I believe Josh Warrington will get the victory.
That big April card that you referred to, was Josh Warrington supposed to be involved with that before the last?
Yes, he was. Yeah, he was. So that's we've actually got another fight that looks like could be headlining that card, just trying to finalise at the moment. But it's still my aim, April 24th or May the 1st, to put a really big card on.
Pay-per-view?
Yes, pay-per-view card.
Dylan Whyte, what is going on? Because a location has still not been announced. Could this fight get delayed, Eddie?
There is a chance it could be delayed. I don't think it will be. I mean, the main thing is to get Dillian Whyte out of Portugal. Looks like tomorrow that may happen because it's in the red list. And the issue that we're having with the government is the government won't allow Dillian Whyte to isolate in the bubble. He has to isolate in a government hotel. That is impossible for Dillian Whyte to do. So he has to isolate now. He could go to Spain, for example, and isolate there for 10 days and then fly in on fight week. So that's what we're putting into place at the moment. Small chance it could be pushed back 2 or 3 weeks to March the 27th. But that's not the intention, and it's our intention to do everything we can to make sure that March 6th stays intact.
But that won't happen in Gibraltar March 6th, won't it? Because to get the Sky team out there...
Originally, we looked at March 6th for Gibraltar. It was impossible with production, with getting people out there. So hopefully we remain March 6th here in Wembley. If we go to March 27, which is the other date we're looking at, that could be here in Wembley or it could be in Gibraltar.
Okay. Sorry.
We will let you know by Saturday at the latest because he'd be moving tomorrow.
Sorry, just to go back to last weekend again about the scoring.
Yes.
As Oscar said to you, this happens way too often, but you're in a position of huge power here. Could you not lobby to the board or ask them for change on this? Because if you don't, who else is going to?
No, I think that, we always make our feelings known to the board. I mean, I did it live on TV last Saturday, and they don't really like it when I do that. But I feel like if I don't do that and speak out, then I'm a bit of a fraud. So it was difficult last week standing next to Zelf because I felt like he just won the fight, but if he did, he won it by a round or two. And I feel like if we don't speak up against bad scorecards, then, like I said, I look like a fraud because I'm lying, really. If they would have asked me, what do you think about scorecards? Yeah, I thought so. I didn't. I thought the scorecards were ridiculous. So I just said the truth on air. And I don't think the board liked it. They don't. And the board, I keep saying time and time again, the board are an outstanding commission. The board have really good officials, but like all officials in all sports, occasionally they get it wrong. But when they get it wrong, they should be called to explain themselves. And the problem I had with 118, 111 is not one ex-fighter, not one current fighter, not one fan, not one judge watching around the world, not one trainer, pundit, whatever, scored it 118, 111, other than the two people sitting at ringside. But the other problem is that scoring's subjective. So when you call someone in to explain their scorecard, they can explain it to you. It's not like this is why I scored it like that. And, Steve Gray's an outstanding official. He's a very good referee. And I can't remember the other judge who scored it 118. But again, they're all really good officials. And there's absolutely nothing untoward or corrupt. And that was the kind of fight where, if you like the aggression, then you like Kiko Martinez in that fight. If you like the cleaner work and the heavier hands and the slickness, it's Zelfa Barrett. So I can understand. But even if whatever way you liked it, it was a round, 2 rounds. And it doesn't do Zelfa any favours because now everyone's talking about the bad scoring, where if it was a split, you might have said, OK, good fight, well done, good win. But then they have a go at us. And the one thing I will say about what Oscar said, when we say it happens too often, it does happen too often. But when you think about the volume of fights that go on, the last terrible decision, yes, at the beginning of October. So we're now in February. So don't get me wrong, there'll always be bad cards, but we are talking, 5 months ago was the last shocker, but we don't want any shockers.
Yeah, but I think what the point is the disparity which you mentioned, where, do you know, like when Golovkin boxed Canelo was 116, 112, people had Golovkin and they gave it a draw, etc. Okay, but these are like, as you said, not one ex-fighter, trainer, promoter. No one on this planet had it like that. It's the disparity. The same thing with Ritson and Vasquez.
The disparity wasn't as bad. The Ritson Vasquez disparity. What I look for is the disparity between judges as well, right? Because if you look at the Ritson Vasquez, I believe Terry O'Connor had the fight, was it by 4, 5, 6 rounds to Ritson? Or 3 rounds to Ritson? And another judge had it by 7 rounds or whatever it was to Vasquez. So it's like, whoa, hang on a minute. How can we have 9, 10, 11 rounds difference? So that's a bigger tell. I mean, it's very unusual to get 2 judges score it as badly as they did on Saturday. Normally there's one card that you look at that's got a disparity. But, you know, it's tough for the board because the board, Robert Smith's a very loyal individual. You know, he really fights hard for his officials and his team, and he always wants to back them. But I feel that, you know, there should be some process where you're, as with a Premier League referee, you know, if you make a poor decision or you have a poor match, you know, you'll be called before the league to explain why that happened. And I think that's an instance where those judges should say, I'm not saying get rid of them, kick them out of the sport. They're good officials. But we just need an explanation that the board, and not an explanation where the board go, okay, thanks very much. You know, there needs to be some kind of you know, committee in place that rules over officials to ensure that the performance is what's expected, because again, it's not a football match, you know, it's a fighter's career.
Life.
Yeah, and also it's difficult for us because when you want to bring a big name to the UK, we don't want them to start saying, well, I'm going to get robbed on the scorecards. And that is, of course, the reputation that, I don't know, Germany and countries like that have had in the past. And I don't think it's anything like those situations, but it's certainly something that will put fighters off coming. And the other issue is, I don't want to go too deep in it, but when we bring a foreign fighter, they want neutral officials. Like I'm talking about a big name or a champion. And the board always insist, and you know, because it's their territory, that they should have the referee and they should have the judges. And they always argue with us that they won't provide a neutral panel because they want representation on the judging panel, which I understand as well. So it's not easy all round.
Okay. Let's talk about this week, finally. Yes. Okay. If fans haven't seen much of David Avanesian, or more casual boxing fans, just break him down for us.
Just a fantastic all-action fighter. Super tough, really heavy hands, technically good as well. I haven't been... I was thinking last night that I'm so excited about this Saturday. I haven't been this excited about not just the card, but the main event for a long time. And when you think that it's only a European title fight, it's such an intriguing fight. The history, you know what went on in here last night. The teams, just the narrative, everything around it. You know, Josh Kelly stepping up to prove that he is a world-class fighter. And make no about Avanesian is a world-class welterweight. World-class, right? He's top 15 in many governing bodies. He is a top 15 welterweight. This is the fight where Josh Kelly can unearth himself as a star in the division. And I've never seen... There is absolutely no excuses for Josh Kelly. They've both been inactive for the same time, roughly. Josh, I think, slightly longer. Josh Kelly is in unbelievable shape for this fight. His weight is absolutely perfect. Adam Booth has been contacting me, during the camp saying, they are so confident. And so, as you know, are the Avanesian team. And that's why I can't wait for the fight, because both teams honestly believe they're going to win. And both teams are so desperate to win this fight. I think you're going to get an amazing fight on Saturday.
If Kelly does come through and Ben beats Vargas April 10th, Summer, Kelly v Ben, is that on? Certainly
2021. I think, one, we want a full up 0-2 for that fight. I think the argument is, do they have one more in the summer between them? But I think Josh Kelly is definitely going to be the one who says, I want that fight now. And Conor Benn wants that fight now. But Conor Benn seems to always be playing catch-up in terms of his experience to Josh Kelly. But Josh Kelly's made it quite clear he wants that fight after this, and so has Conor Benn. So, I want to make sure that if both those guys take that fight, they get the night and and the money they deserve for that fight, because it is a massive fight. And
Is that a pay-per-view fight?
not at the moment, but
That's why you're saving it to the end of the year.
well, yeah, possibly. But it would only be a pay-per-view fight if you're talking about two world-class welterweights that are in contention to fight for the world title. I don't think, I know there's been British title fights that have been pay-per-view before and those kind of levels, but I think it needs to be a world-class welterweight fight that is one of the best fights in the division, not just a massive domestic fight. But I think that both those guys will say this is, outside of the Spences and the Pacquiaos and the Furmans and all, this is the biggest fight for those two guys. Do you know what I mean? So they're never going to get an experience to make that kind of money until they fight at that elite level. And that's my job, to make sure that we can give them as much money as possible for that fight. And I think it's a wonderful fight. When you say, is it a pay-per-view fight, I think a lot depends on Saturday, of course, and April 10th. If Josh Kelly destroys Avanesian and everyone says this kid's amazing, what a star, and Conor Benn takes out Vargas, then we can start talking about that. But right now, as we saw last Saturday, let's see what happens this Saturday.
Okay, so as much as a good fight that is, our numbers have been heavier on Marco Charlton. Yeah, break that fight down for me as well.
I was just talking to Sam Jones about it. I mean, two novices, really. I mean, Marco with more experience, but Charlton, what's he had, 6 fights, 7 fights, something like that? But that's what makes it such a great fight, because Charlton's a bit naive in the ring, So I think Ryan Charlton's going to come out and absolutely go for it against Marco. And if he does, you are going to get an absolute thriller between those two. And I just love the fight because Ryland Charlton's looking at it. He come in quite late notice, beat Joe Laws, and they're just continuously ready to roll the dice. They're saying we want Ben or Avanesian or Kelly after this fight. And I just think it's a thrilling fight, a really thrilling fight. And I'm looking forward to the press conference in about an hour's time.
Okay, moving on from this card. Any more communication with Top Rank about FuryJoshua?
Yeah, loads. Again, last night, a few phone calls with our friend Bob. I was actually laughing because someone posted something with Arum saying, Eddie's got a big mouth. He should keep his mouth shut and not talk about what's happening. So let me tell you what's happening. And he went off and said it I did something with Danny Flexen yesterday, I think, and just I'm not going to talk about it because we're super close and I just want to get it over the line. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Again, we're close and we're doing everything we can to finalise this as soon as possible.
Bob said that you'd been told off.
Bob phoned me up. Bob's just fucking hilarious. He's absolutely off his chops, to be honest with you. I mean, you don't know whether he's sort of been smoking the weed like he does or whatever he does with those tablets or whatever they're called, but he's off his trolley most of the time. But he is a legend. So when he does tell me off, because of the respect I have for him, he's 89 years old. He's 89. And what he's achieved in boxing, so I don't feel like, I just go, okay, Bob, okay. But then he does an interview. It's very difficult because every interview, as you know, we get asked about it. And I keep saying, I'm not going to say anything. So I'm not going to say anything. But Bob is just, like I said, he's off his chops to the point where some of the stuff he's saying at the moment about his fighters, about purse bids, I can imagine people within Top Rank going, Bob, stop these interviews. But when you get to that age, there's 2 things or 3 things that can give you honesty in life, where you just tell the truth and you don't care. And they are, number 1, having shitloads of money. Number 2, being old. And number 3 is just being comfortable with yourself and your situation. Bob's got 2 of those 3. I don't know if he's comfortable. He's probably got 3 of those 3. And he just doesn't care. But some of the things he says, you just can't say them. But, Bob's Bob. And he's going to continue to do things his way.
All right, let me ask you about that. So I did an interview with him and asked about the Lopez Cambosis Jr. situation. So are you going to reach a deal? He said, Possibly, if it goes to purse bids, I don't think Eddie Hearn will bid for that because it would be an idiotic way to start a relationship with FuryJoshua. Are you going to bid for Lopez Cambosis Jr.?
I think that was the most ridiculous. And I mean, I won't go into what I really think about him saying that, but you've got to be very careful what you say in statements like that. You know, you can't threaten another promoter regarding a purse for one of your clients to stop someone making a bid because it'll affect another fight. I mean, it's just the most bizarre thing. Ultimately, if our broadcaster wants that fight, we will bid. If they don't and it doesn't work within our schedule, we won't bid.
Aren't purse bids today?
No, purse bids were cancelled last night because of a snowstorm in New Jersey. So there'll be some time next week and we'll sit down and listen. We've got so much being planned on the schedule that maybe DAZN say we'll pass on that one at those numbers. Or maybe DAZN say we want to bid for that. If I was in charge of DAZN, I would 100% be bidding. But, you know, there's been a lot of discussions and I won't go into it too deeply, but people have got to be very careful. You know, Bob saying, you know, because if I'm Teofimo Lopez, I'm saying, so Aaron, you're putting people off bidding for my fight. How does that work? So again, if I'm at Top Rank, I'm probably thinking, what is going on here? Bob, stop with the interviews. In fact, I blame you, Umar, because the Top Rank probably looking at you thinking, will you please stop contacting Bob Arum? You know?
Devon Haney's father, DHP Promotions, wants to bid for that fight as well.
And then he'll ask me for the money. Bill will probably win the bid and then go, Eddie, we won the bid. It's like, no, mate, you won the bid. So, yeah, I think that was pretty tongue-in-cheek. But listen, we'll see, you know. Bill's got money. Bill's got brains. So he's a good partner of ours. So we'll see what happens.
In terms of FuryJoshua, can I ask you about the rumours about a £40 pay-per-view price? Simon Jordan was talking about on TalkSport.
I don't know where these rumours come from. Again, you know, I haven't had any discussions about the pay-per-view price. I certainly don't think it'll be £40. So nothing's been discussed, nothing's been set. I just started getting some tweets and some DMs going, you're a disgrace, £40. I was like, where's that come from? So no discussions.
He lost his nut, Simon Jordan.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Simon Jordan, he's quite funny, but I don't know where they got that from.
What do you think the card will look like?
I think it will be a really good card. I think obviously everyone's going to, all the involved parties are going to want to put fights on, and as always, when the fighters control the revenue for the card, you know, they'll have to approve the cost of those fights. But certainly, if there is an increase in a pay-per-view price, which there probably will be, you know, not £40, but you know, I think there will be, then we need to say, you know, we need to provide a show that's worthy of that. Of course, it's the biggest fight in boxing, but we've got loads of fighters, you know, that I would love to give that platform to, I would love to give that exposure to, and so would Top Rank and everybody else involved in the fight.
Could we see like a Hearn v Top Rank and Warren card?
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I think, like I say, everyone's going to want to put fighters forward for that card. So that's not at the forefront of our minds at the moment. But of course, once we're up and running with the venue and the site, we'll plan the undercard and it'll be a very good one.
Back to purse bid talk. So obviously Frank Warren won the Bentley cash purse bid. Have you had conversations with Tony Sims about potentially that fight, them taking that fight? Because he went on record and said if Frank won the purse bid, they look at the European title, I think, against Signani.
Signani, yeah, that's a fight we've got made. The Signani fight. No, it has always been, you know, on the horizon. I like the Bentley fight. I spoke to Tony Sims about it. I think that, you know, I can't sit here and tell you, oh, don't like that fight. I bid for that fight. So I didn't win the purse bid for that fight. So I think it's a good fight. And I think that Felix Cash, a victory in that fight for Felix Cash, which I believe he wins, would put him in a great position to go on and become a major player. So we haven't heard anything from Frank Warren on a date or anything like that. So once we get that notification, we'll sit down with the team and decide whether he wants to fight for the European title or the British title. Naturally, most fighters would prefer to fight for the European title, but Bentley fight is a bigger fight than the Signani fight, even though the Signani fight will give him the world ranking. So it's quite a tough decision, but pride as well has to play a little bit of part. You know, you don't really want to walk away from that fight. Tony believes they win that fight comfortably, and if that's the case, then I have no problem with them taking that fight. And I think it's a good one.
What about purse bids for Brad Foster and Yefai? They're due soon, aren't they?
Yes, that's obviously a bit of a different situation. Yefai is European champion, Brad Foster is British champion, and Gamal wants to kick on. But again, I haven't decided yet whether we're going to bid for that fight. I have spoken to Max McCracken and Gamal about that fight, and we see if we want to go forward with that or try and move up the world rankings. But another good fight, you know. And to be honest, with everything going on at the moment, the more domestic fights we can make, the better.
So just back to Felix Cash. If he does decide to take that Signani fight, that will be April 17th?
Yes. April 10.
Sorry, April 10th.
Yes.
Okay. Is Craig Richards boxing Dmitry Bivol?
We are in negotiations for that fight. It's quite a unique one where, you know, obviously Spider had a tremendous win against Shakan Pitters, destroyed him. And Peter Sims come to me and said, look, we'd like a shot at a massive fight. And I said, well, you know, we've got Dmitry Bivol. This is a massive step up for Craig Richards. And they said, we're up for it. You know, we believe that Craig can compete. They believe they can beat Bivol. You know, and Bivol's been inactive for, 16 months, something like that. It would be in the UK. Yeah. But it's just a massive step up, massive fight. But, you know, when else are you going to get an opportunity to fight for a world title on your home patch? And like I said, Craig Richards is coming off such a great performance. Has he shown that he can beat Dmitry Bivol? Probably not. But what are we going to get from Dmitry Bivol? You just never know. So Craig Richards is British champion. He can take an outrageous step up and the opportunity of a lifetime. And if he gets beat, which, you know, when I said that to Peter Sims, he looked at me like he was going to kill me. Then he comes back and he fights the domestic fights, which is great. So I like it. And if you're ever going to fight Dmitry Bivol, trust me, now is the time to do it, because this kid is a mustard fighter. But he has been out of the ring. He blast boxed in 2019 in October on the Usyk card. So it'll be over a year and a half out of the ring when he gets back in. So if you're ever going to fight Dmitry Bivol, now is the time to do it.
Whatever their team said about that?
Yeah, they're up for it. I mean, you know, they want to get active. It's been very frustrating for him, because the problem is with Dmitry Bivol, he isn't the household name yet, and he's been making great money. Now the market's readjusted. It's been more difficult for him to get the right fights. I like the Gabriel Ramirez fight. It's another fight I'm trying to make for the summer, but I would like to give Craig Richards the opportunity first.
I was just going to ask you about Gabriel Ramirez. He pulled out the Marcus Brown clash. Are you looking to sign Ramirez? We're talking,
and I've offered him the Dmitry Bivol fight. And, you know, the conversations with Dmitry Bivol are to fight Craig Richards, and then if he wins, fight Ramirez after that.
Do you think Bivol will box Biv this year?
I think, yes. I believe Joe Smith is going to... I know that got postponed, but when that gets reposed, Joe Smith will win the world title. They'll do Beterbiev against Joe Smith, really good fight. And then together with Bob, we'll make Beterbiev against Bivol. It's an absolute pound-for-pound fucking great crash. But, you know, I don't want to... I know Craig's a massive underdog, but I'm talking about Bivol's plans. But first things first, I'd love to give him the opportunity to try and shock the world.
Andre Williams, Providence, April, is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, it looks like it. We're just finalising. Obviously, we've agreed all terms for that fight, and we've now sent them the contract, of which we're just finalising at the moment, and you'll get an announcement next week on that fight. It will be April, and it will be in the States. Did you see any of Boo Boo's interview with me? Yeah, he was. He's just on the wind-up, basically. He's got a very strange sense of humour, Demetrius. That's going to be lively. What's the build-up? Yeah, great fight, you know. That fight is such a good fight. In America, I'm working hard to convince people that that's a really good fight, because they've never heard of Liam Williams. And they say, he's fighting another dad. What? I said, no. Liam Williams is a really good fighter, and he's going to give it everything. So that's a great fight. In the UK, the response to that fight was mega. April, you'll get the announcement next week. Have you talked to PBC about John Ryder and David Morrell for the vacant WBA? Yes. We are discussing that fight. I think we've got another week till purse bids are called. Looking to make that fight April or May of this year. What do you think about Callum Johnson signing with Frank Warren? Seen that today? Yeah, I think it's a really good move for him. He's 36 this year. He hasn't boxed for 2 years. He's got to get active. And I think it's a really good move for him. I'm really pleased for him because he's a lovely, lovely guy, Callum Johnson. And he needs to fight, so I think it's a good move.
They've got Linden and Yard, so it makes sense, I suppose.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, I think I haven't spoke to Joe about Callum Johnson for 6 months or something like that, or September last year or something like that. We made him an offer to fight, have a warm-up, then fight Boazzi. He didn't want to do it, or we couldn't agree terms. And we haven't spoken since. And I think he has to fight. You know, like I said, he's 36 this year, and he's a good fighter, and he's a lovely, lovely lad. And I think it's a good move to him. And you know, like I said, when you look at our schedule, we don't have any spaces. So if they can get him out fast and active, I think it's a great move for his career.
Just finally, want some quick updates on these potential fights and fighters. So Golovkin, could he box Murata? What's going on with that?
Yeah, I think the Murata fight comes later in the year. That's generally a fight that the Japanese look at for sort of a December 31st date. You know, discussions about fighting Munguia, which is a great fight as well. But I think the Murata fight is one that he would look at for December. But of course, Canelo also looks at that fight for December. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. What's
going on with Richard Riakporhe?
Richard Riakporhe due to fight on the Dillian Whyte card. Actually, he's training for that. We've got a few fights lined up. He's very highly ranked with the WBA. Obviously, you saw Shumanov up there. I mean, it's a bit of a logjam. But we're looking for some kind of final eliminator for Richard Riakporhe for the Dillian Whyte card.
Joshua Boazzi?
Joshua Boazzi is going to be out, looks like the end of April or first week of May. You know, ready to move on. Yeah, Barrera. I mean, the Caparello fight is the eliminator. I mean, Josh is right up there now in the world ranking. So it's a bit of a shame after his October fight. We had him planned to get out in December on the AJ card, but he had a little bit of eye damage, couldn't box. So I just want to keep him active. He must box 3 times minimum this year. So looking to get out in May and then kick on for a world title shot.
Daniel Usinov, what's going on with him?
April, he'll be on the Liam Williams card against Andrade. Ready to fight anyone at one.
It's going to be so tough to get him fight.
Because again, he's not got yet that star American name, but he's ready to fight anyone. We tried to get him the Virgil Ortiz fight. They didn't want that fight. He's going to be really difficult to match, but we're just going to have to pay up for a top class opponent for April, and he's ready to kick on.
Filip Hrgović and Martin Bakole.
Trying. We nearly had that deal made, but we're trying to finalise it. And again, April for Filip Hrgović as well.
Okay, and if that doesn't get made, where do you think Hrgović and Bakole are going?
I mean, I think for Hrgović, we made Michael Hunter an offer. We never heard back. You know, I know he was willing to fight for free against Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury, but we were willing to pay him for the Hrgović fight. But no one really wants to fight Hrgović. I know, he's a beast. He really is. And again, same thing with Usinov. You just got to pay up for the opponents.
Devin Haney and Jorge Linares?
In negotiations, we've got Fortuna, we've got Linares. Why Ryan Garcia doesn't want to fight Devin Haney is beyond me. He says he wants a big fight. He says he wants big money. It's right in front of him. So I think Haney against Linares is a wonderful fight, and one that we're talking to Robert Diaz, my good friend at Golden Boy.
Okay, Eddie Hearn, just before we close off, final message to the fans tuning in Sky Sports this Saturday night, obviously DAZN as well.
Yeah, I just thank you for your support last week. The viewing figures were incredible up there, yeah. And this week is just such a brilliant fight, a great card. So much drama last week, even more drama this week. Canelo next week as well. Julio Cesar Martinez, Zhang on the card, Pacheco, Keyshawn Davis debut, massive card. Just living on a crest of a wave, mate, to be honest with you. I mean, to think that next week I'm promoting Canelo Alvarez at Miami Dolphins. I mean, that's what dreams are made of. So we're buzzing. So many great cards coming up. Don't miss it, Saturday night, live on the UK on Sky Sports, around the rest of the world on DAZN. Tune in.
Is Billy Joe flying into Miami?
Quite possibly.
Good luck with that. Yeah. Cheers, Eddie. Thanks.